Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is CraigCrash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. We've got a lot to get into tonight. We're going to talk some World Series. The Fall Classic is set. Braves and Astros. We're also going to talk some college football. It's going to kind of bookend the day. We're going to get into the Indiana excitement rankings, going to give an update on that, as well as get into some other college football conversation. And B. Scott, unfortunately, the last few weeks we had opened on high notes for you. You had the Red Sox making the ALCS. You had Purdue knocking off Iowa. This week, not so much.
No, not so much at all. But I'm not as down on the Red Sox. Because, look, last year, weren't they last in the division?
They weren't supposed to be this good this year.
No, they were not. So they're ahead of schedule. They were a fun team. And when you are playing ahead of schedule, you just kind of go along for the ride. And when it comes to an end, you don't feel too bad. You're like, it was fun. And because you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, it's exactly how it went when the Cubs went all the way to the NLCS in 2015. Obviously it was the plan to eventually get to the World Series, but they, knocked off the big bad Cardinals in that first matchup, and that was kind of the highlight of the postseason, winning the wild card game as well. Now, one thing we can hang our hat on is the Indianapolis Colts, who get their when they're getting back on track a little bit. I mean, San Francisco isn't the greatest of teams, but they're not a slouch either, and the Colts are able to win.
Remember, San Francisco's the worst team in the best division.
Right, exactly. So the Colts
they played in a bomb cyclone.
Yes, which, I mean, heck, if you're that's pretty if you're gonna get caught in anything, I mean, a bomb cyclone, that's pretty cool, pretty fun to say. So I mean, so that was pretty interesting, just watching the torrential downpour yesterday. But beyond all the sports, B. Scott, how was your weekend, man?
It was busy, as always.
Yeah.
We're getting into the wrestling season now, so sleep is for suckers at this point.
Hey, I mean, if you watch any of those success videos, how to be successful, they're like, you don't get sleep is what you sacrifice, because you wake up at 4 a.m. and go to bed at 11 p.m. and
Yeah, but I'm just doing that to make ends meet, whereas
True.
They're doing it to make millions of dollars. I'm still waiting on that.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the college football conversation real quick to kick things off, because before we got too far into the World Series update, one thing, kind of the big story of the weekend was Illinois upsetting number 7 Penn State in not 1, not 2, not 3, but 9 overtimes. A crazy game in Happy Valley.
I'm sitting in Rosario, and I keep looking up at the scoreboard, and you remember how the score updates at Purdue
are not reliable.
They just were very wonky on that scoreboard. They made 0 sense. The scores kept changing, or the quarters, it was never anything right. So when I'm up there looking at it, because at one point the score was different than what the final score was. Even it was like Penn State was kicking the snot out of Illinois, and then all of a sudden it was tied, and then they went backwards and they were still tied, but all of a sudden I saw it was 9 overtimes. I was like, that can't be right. No, somebody screwed up there. Yeah. Whoever the intern is, take the keyboard away right now, because that's totally wrong.
So it's funny, because the most ridiculous scenario that they could have put up there is the one that was actually true. With the fact they went to 9 overtimes. It was 10-10 heading into overtime. Then each team kicked a field goal in their first 2 possessions. So it was 16-16 heading into the third overtime, which new rule for 2021. After the second overtime, heading into the third overtime, it's dueling 2-point conversions. That's how Illinois wins 20-18 as they get their 2-point conversion to go, and then I believe they then stop Penn State. So Going, so getting into this a little bit, because I knew that the overtime rules had changed, but I hadn't really taken a whole, look at them until this weekend against Penn State, because college football overtime is just so wonky to me anyway, with how they've, changed it over the years, and how some of the changes have been for the good, some of them haven't been. But, each team, it's pretty standard at the beginning. Each team gets a possession from the 25-yard line for the first two overtimes. That's what we are used to. And then a little bit of a, toss-up here, because what I read was after the first overtime they go for two, but in years past it's been the second OT, so I can't remember if I just read that wrong or not. But eventually, once we get to the third overtime, it's each team will get one 2-point play opportunity per overtime. So once the third quarter begins, it's just dueling 2-point conversion attempts. The rules are the same for the regular season and the postseason, and the change was made to combat long overtime games, such as the Texas A&M LSU 7 OT thriller in 2018.
That really worked.
My qualm with that. And, this is one of the, exceptions to the rule. You're not going to get this every single time out. So being super overreactionary about the rules here isn't necessarily necessary. But at the same time, for one, I don't see how it's quicker, because you're setting up the 2-point conversion. Then they run one play, then we switch, offense and defense. They run their play. Then if it's like it used to be, you switch end zones, send out one team, send the offense back out from the original team. That just seems like it takes longer to me. That doesn't seem like that's simpler at all. And then the crazy thing is that I understand the entertainment value of dueling 2-point conversion. We talk about it all the time, with the new the new play-in tournament for the NBA, or you have you get extra innings in baseball now with a runner on second. That's supposed to not only end the game sooner, but also amp up the entertainment value. So I get that part of it, and I'm also all for ramping up the gimmicks a little bit, to end regular season games quicker. Because that's the main thing, is that you don't want to have these long marathon games. But the thing that alarms me the most is that these are going to be the rules for the postseason, too. You could potentially have Alabama versus Georgia national championship round 2, and that game did go into overtime. You would have been 1-2 a pass not being converted, because didn't that go into double overtime? That'd be 1-2 incompletion away from being dueling 2-point conversions to crown a champion. After all the crap that you have to navigate anyway during the course of the college football season, you then have it all decided on dueling 2-point conversions. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, no. So, if we're going to talk crazy overtime rules, I don't know if it's still in effect, but it used to be. If in the senior level for wrestling, if it went into overtime or beyond a certain overtime, and they couldn't figure out a winner by criteria, they would take a bag with colored balls in it, red or blue, and best 2 out of 3 wins. Drawing. They decided an Olympic spot on this one year.
What?
It was my old high school teammate that lost the ball draw.
The ball draw. Okay. All right. So that makes up for it. The fact that it's called the ball draw makes it a little better. I'm not going to lie to you. It makes it a little bit more palatable that it's
overtime rules in general are just even the NFL, we'll play one overtime and then no, we're good, we're done.
Yeah,
it's a tie.
Well, so that's what I mean. I'm all for overtime rules that give you in the regular season give you a quick conclusion, in the postseason decide an actual winner, which obviously they all do, and and then I'm all for things that end the game in the regular season quickly without making sure there's a tie. And so, because I've been a big proponent, you have the runner on second. In baseball, I don't actually mind that. I just wish it started later in extra innings, not the first.
What I wish they would do? Here's my solution. You get past the second overtime, each team has their kicker come out, one on one end, one on the other end, and you don't rush anybody or anything like that, no blocking. And each kicker, they every time they make a field goal, they back up 5 yards until somebody misses finally.
I like that. That was a little similar to what I was thinking too, because honestly, I want to see, like, kicking is probably accomplishes what I said a little bit better than what I'm about to say, as far as like what my criteria are. But they should start out at the 25 or even the 15. Then if we're still tied, back it up to the 20. If we're still tied, back it up to the 25. If we're still tied, back it up to the 30. To the point where, and I'm also for maybe after the first overtime, give each team one normal possession. And then if nothing happens after the next normal possession, then get into the gimmicks. Give me the penalty kicks. Give me what I want to see in baseball. Give me the home run derby after the 12th inning, where you send everybody up, and it's like, those kind of situations. So I would love to see that kind of thing happen. It's just that when I think, like, when I look and see that line in that article that I read that was like a playoff game could be decided this way, I was mind blown, because I do not want to see that. And it probably will never happen before the overtime rules get changed again, because they get changed every other day. But but it's just mind blowing to me. But hey, I mean,
but now that you've put it out there out into the universe, you've spoken into existence, and that means we are going to have an Alabama versus Georgia national championship game that goes 9 overtimes.
Here's what's happening. No. See, here's what's happening. It's going to be Cincinnati, Alabama in the national championship game. Cincinnati loses in the 10th overtime on a controversial 2-point conversion play. That's what's going to happen. The truly driving the nail into the coffin there. But yeah, so just wanted to talk a little bit about the overtimes, just and how wonky it was. B. Scott, you still with us? You look like you're frozen. I think B. Scott's frozen, so that's not great. B. Scott, are you with us? Can you hear me? All right. Well, you know what? While we get that figured out, I'm gonna blame it on Elle and Megan, who are both in the chat right now. They're having their own little conversation in there. But real quick, while I wait on B. Scott to rejoin us, we're gonna talk about our friends of the show here. First of all, we are brought to you by Anchor. There we are, full screen. B. Scott's gonna rejoin us here momentarily. His internet crashed, so that's not great. Hopefully that comes back on soon. Okay, so if anyone here is, real quick, aside from the friends of the show, we're not officially to that yet. Does anyone remember, like, the Office episode where, like, Michael has a breakdown and so he leaves the office and Pam's like, I'm just trying to bridge the gap between what just happened and the rest of the presentation. That's what I'm going through right now. Hey, it happens. You know what? Honestly, though, we've been doing live streams of the podcast now for over a year, and this is the first, like, time something like this has happened. So, honestly, I'm not mad about it. It's like the first time. So I used to drive to Indy to work at Indiana SRN, and I still do for Indiana SRN, but for 1070 The Fan, and I used to have to drive an hour. And so, like, the first time ever that I got, like, a situation where I couldn't go because of the weather, I was like, you know what? I've been driving to and from Indianapolis for 3, 4, 5 years, and it's happened one time that the weather was too bad for me to be able to go. So I mean, it's gonna happen sometimes. I'm also reading the chat here. It's going off right now. Meg and Elle, they're amazing. So first of all, another thing to kill time, we have another opportunity here to plug Elle and Meg, who have a podcast of their own. Well, yeah, it's a podcast because it's on YouTube and on Instagram, but it's for writers. It's called So You Wanna. They're both authors. They're both super smart and amazing, so go check that out. So You Wanna on YouTube. Follow them. Elle Meredith writes on Instagram. Author Megan Alexandria on Instagram as well. So make sure you guys go check that out. And now we'll get into the friends of the show, but not before I text B. Scott back. You should be able to just still click the link. So I'm just going to tell him, hey, Xfinity outage in my area. I will say, hey, oh man, well, just rejoin if and when you can, or if you want, join from your phone using your data if you want to. You know what? This is it's funny too because like I was gonna say this is live streaming, folks, but people will also hear this on the podcast app tomorrow and be like, what the heck is going on? But while I wait for him to text me back, let's get into our friends of the show. Remember that we do put this podcast out there every week on Anchor, anchor.fm/crash course. Anchor is a great website that you can use for your podcast. They've now recently put in the option to do video podcasts, so that's pretty cool if you want to go down that route as well. But Anchor is a great website where you can take your audio and put it either into the website or record straight to Anchor to put your podcast out there. From there, they will take that audio, take your podcast link, and disperse it to a bunch of different podcast sites like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever podcasts can be heard. You're able to hear those podcasts. And so we're also brought to you by Eat Lunch and Board Game. That's a podcast that my cousin does, Adam. He does a great job doing that. It's about board games. He has his own board game company, so he has a lot of different people on to get into the gaming world. That way, I'm a big gamer. And so that's something that, of course, on the video game side of things, but he tackles the board game side of things, talking about how playing board games can help you build professional, relationships at work and that kind of thing. So go check that out. He supports us, so we want to support him as much as possible. Eat Lunch and Board Game. And then also we want to remind you that you can follow us on Facebook, 3C Media. You can follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. You can go to our YouTube channel, 3C Media. Not only do we have the MCT podcast where those guys kill it, we also have which of course Michael over there killing it with the thumbnails. He's taking over our thumbnail work. So if you want, you don't have to click on the video. I mean, we'd like it if you did, but he's making our thumbnails and he's doing a great job. So 3C Media on YouTube, where you can find not only YouTube exclusive content, you can find us every week. You can find the MCT podcast. Those guys are amazing. So make sure you check that out. Also, 3C Media on TikTok. We've got some TikTok only content that comes out every week, so check that out. And then remember that you can follow us, or that you can go to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CraigCrash, if you want to watch us live, interact with us live every single week. Make sure you check us out, twitch.tv/CraigCrash. Also, I do some gaming on there as well if you want to check it out. And then remember, you can listen to the podcast every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course podcast. And we talk about how we can, interact, how we want you guys to interact with us in the chat. We've got Megan and Elle in the chat right now. They're having, I usually take this time to catch up on the chat, but you guys have been really blowing up the chat tonight in support of the podcast, telling us, having your own little conversation, honestly. And buying merch. So I appreciate that. Some merch from the video game side of things on this channel. So thank you guys for your support. Glad to have you guys here in the chat, vibing as we get ready to talk World Series. So As we wait for, well, I'm not going to wait for B. Scott to get back anymore. I'm just going to get into the World Series preview, and hopefully he can rejoin. So, what does GG stand for? It stands for good game. So there you go. That was the question from Elle in the chat. So we want to make sure she is up to date on everything. Oh wow, how is that not in my folder? If you're watching on the YouTube side of things, I'm moving all my socials apparently except for the TikTok logo, so that's cool. I was trying to make it a little smaller so it's not overtaking my face too much and is a little bit visually appealing, but I'll just set up in my chair and now it looks it looks a little bit better. Should I get the GG or the Weird Burger Man? Definitely Weird Burger Man. All the way. So anyway, all right, I digress. I filled enough time. It's time now to get into the World Series preview. We've got the NL East champions, the Atlanta Braves, taking on the big bad Houston Astros from the AL West. A quick breakdown of the NL playoffs. We got the meeting ID here for B. Scott. I'm like doing this on the fly here. Hold on. So, meeting ID. We're going to go to invite. And the meeting ID link won't work. Because, of course, it doesn't. Because Zoom, man. No, Zoom is actually great. Without Zoom, we wouldn't be able to do the video side of things. So, we do love that part of it. I can't type, man. My fingers are too fat to type. I'm just going to throw that out there. And then RD1. I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so if none of the words that I say make sense, that's why. Alright. As a pass. Oh, the password. Alright. I can't type. There we go. Password sent out. We are good to go. Craig better get a So You Want a Mug? Yes, absolutely. All right, so we are still going to fill time until B. Scott's here because B. Scott is on his way. That's what we want to have happen here. Because, B. Scott's the smart one. B. Scott's the brains of the operation. So we can't do the podcast without B. Scott. As he is rejoining the page here. Look who we have here, guys. Dude, I don't think I've done that much filling in a while. I'm just going to throw that out here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm back finally.
Good. Hey, you know what? It's good quality. So if you guys don't know, B. Scott moved from his man cave. You always see that illustrious man cave behind him. Now he's just in his other room, his study, where he spends, he can't work in the same place that he lounges. So, I mean,
No. I'm in the dog's room.
I think it's the dog's room, yes. All righty. Well, B. Scott, we got through the friends of the show. We filled time. Meg and Elle bought some merch. It was a grand old time. We were doing our best to fill. And I was actually just getting into the World Series preview because I wasn't sure when you'd be back. So you're just in time. Welcome back. Sorry that there's an Xfinity outage apparently where you are.
Yeah, technology.
Oh yeah, you definitely
live and die by it. We live and die by it. And now I'm on my phone.
It reminds
Thankfully I pay for unlimited data, so we're good.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of when Instagram and Facebook went down a couple of weeks ago and everyone lost their mind. It's
yeah, we did because that's my job.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So
what this reminds me of is this takes me back to the early days of the show when we would call each other.
True.
And record it over the phone.
Yes. So for those of you, real quick, and then I promise we'll get into the World Series preview. The way I used to do the podcast is I would have a microphone attached to my computer. We would record it into Audacity, and I would just have my phone flipped upside down so the speaker would be up, and the sound would emanate into the microphone, and that's how B. Scott's side of it would be captured. So that's definitely old school Crash Course podcast.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's finally get into the World Series preview. The NL East champion Atlanta Braves against the big bad Houston Astros from the AL West. Giving you a quick recap of the NL playoffs, the Braves' path to the World Series. In the NLDS, they took on the NL Central champion Brewers. Brewers take Game 1 on a Rowdy Tellez home run. The Braves won back-to-back 3-0 games to take a 2-1 series lead. Atlanta clinches the series on Freddie Freeman's homer off of Josh Hader in Game 4 to give the Braves the 5-4 win, and that set them up with a date against the LA Dodgers. Austin Riley walks off Game 1. Eddie Rosario walks off Game 2 to give the Braves a 2-0 series lead. The Dodgers rally in the 8th in Game 3 with Cody Bellinger's 3-run home run. Betts' RBI double gives the Dodgers the win. The Braves took a 3-1 series lead with a blowout Game 4 win, and you thought, hey, is it going to happen again where the Braves blow a 3-1 lead? They were up that much last year, and it looked like it could be on its way as Chris Taylor has a 3-home-run day. It lifts the Dodgers to a Game 5 win, but then in Game 6, Eddie Rosario goes absolutely bonkers, hits a 3-run homer in the 5th in Game 6. The Braves hang on to win. So the Atlanta Braves are your National League champion. Over on the AL side of things, the Astros' path to the World Series. In the ALDS, the Astros defeated the White Sox. Houston outscored Chicago 31-18 to win the series 3-1. I mean, it was just exciting. And that was 18 runs for Chicago, including a Game 3 in which they scored 12 runs. So they scored 12 runs in Game 3, and the other 3 games they scored 6. And then in the ALCS, B. Scott, cover your ears. The Astros over the Red Sox. Altuve and Correa homer to lift the Astros to a Game 1 win. The Red Sox hit 3 grand slams to surge to wins in Games 2 and 3. JD Martinez, Rafael Devers, and Kyle Schwarber are the guys who hit those. And then the Astros outscore the Red Sox 23-3 in Games 4 through 6 to win their 3rd AL pennant in 5 seasons. That includes a 7-run 9th in Game 4 after trailing 2-1 in the 8th. So kind of a little bit of a breakdown for this World Series. Players to watch: Atlanta outfielder Eddie Rosario. He's hitting .474 this postseason, the highest among remaining players in this postseason. He was the NLCS MVP. 14 hits, 3 home runs, 9 RBI in the series. From the Astros, you have the DH, Yordan Alvarez. He's hitting .441 this postseason. He was the ALCS MVP. He went 9 for 13 with a home run, 5 RBI in the decisive games 4 through 6. Houston's starting pitching has been suspect this postseason. You've got but in those last 2 games of the ALCS, they were on it. Framber, Valdez, and Luis Garcia, 13 2/3 innings pitched, an earned run, and 12 combined strikeouts in Game 5 and 6. The Braves bullpen, which had been a bugaboo for them all season, they have a 3.56 ERA and 4 saves this postseason. Looking at some team statistics, the Astros have driven in 65 runs this postseason. That is first among postseason teams, and B. Scott, the next closest team, has 39. So that shows you how much the Astros are scoring. The Astros and Braves are 2nd and 4th respectively in OPS, and the Braves have the 3rd lowest OBA, that's pitchers on base average, this postseason. So we finally have come to the World Series, B. Scott, and it's going to be a fun one between these 2 teams.
Oh, I agree. Like I said earlier, I'm not too bummed at the Red Sox loss. Like I said, they weren't even supposed to make it that far. And I think you may have said this on Twitter, but I am happy to see Dusty Baker get a shot at the World Series. I'm very excited about that, and I'm finally happy to see the Braves get over that hump. Like, I feel like the past couple of seasons I've been riding high on the Braves, and they've kind of let me down in the postseason. And now for them to finally get there, and by getting there and taking out the Dodgers along the way to really, show that they are the real deal. I'm very excited for this World Series. I think it's actually going to be a really good one. I mean, I'm glad it's
not the Dodgers there again. It just felt like, the Dodgers were buying their way into World Series with all the talent that they have. So I'm really glad to see Atlanta get their shot. I think, after losing the All-Star game and everything, I'm glad to see the Braves and the city of Atlanta get to have their time to shine.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun series too. This Atlanta Braves team. I was gonna say it a little bit later, but they remind me a lot of the 2019 Nationals as far as just a team that. I mean, I know the difference is the Braves won the division. They've won the last 5, yet this is still their first appearance since 1999 in the World Series. And they've had some people really step up this postseason for them, and it really, like I said, reminds me of the 2019 Nationals in that respect. Glad to see Eddie Rosario get his chance. He was traded for literally nothing at the trade deadline. That's the Braves. That's how the Braves got him. I'm happy to see Jock Peterson get an opportunity after spending some time with the Cubs this year, and I mean Jorge Soler, also former Cub.
Wait, Jock Peterson, wasn't he also with the Dodgers at one point?
Yeah,
when
he
they
was.
made a run?
He was.
So
yeah, and then you've got like I said, the only it was me that tweeted it. The only saving grace for for if the Astros were to win it all is that Dusty Baker would get one finally. Still mind-boggling to me that a team that was found out to be involved in that big of a cheating scandal being in the World Series 2 one actual season after that happens. Because remember, I mean, last year they just had the 60-game season.
Right. Well, the thing is, now you realize that the Astros really did not have to cheat.
Yeah.
They really didn't have to. They are good.
Right. That's... It's like...
It would have been better. It would have been a lot better. Like, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't have been. But if they would have, gone out and, been horrible... Then you go, okay, well, that's why they cheated, because they stink. But they're good. So I don't know why they had to cheat, because they are actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, that was I've said that before, just the fact that like that's what makes it hurt even more that they decided to cheat. Because in the 2017 World Series, I wanted the Astros to win. They had they had Justin Verlander, they had Jose Altuve, they had Carlos Correa, they had a lot of likable. I remember them being in the 2015 playoffs when they got beat by the Royals, and they were such a good team that year. I was rooting for them. Charlie Morton was a great story, and I know he wasn't really involved in the cheating part because it was mainly during the hitting. But Charlie Morton was a good story. Now that's kind of funny because he's on the Braves now, and so. Yeah, they did not have to cheat in the slightest to get to where they, have got the last 5 seasons and 3 World Series. Yeah, that's what makes it hurt a little bit more. It's just kind of a bummer. I still hope that they don't win the World Series. I will just go out there and say that, but I have a feeling that they're looking in good shape to do that.
But like you said, at least Dusty Baker will get one
for sure. Let's go ahead and get into hot or cold, where I will say a statement, and B. Scott and I will say whether it's a hot take or a cold take. First question on the board. The Braves' World Series hopes lie with Eddie Rosario. For me, that is a hot take. He has this postseason 18 hits, 3 home runs, 11 RBI. But a lot of those hits, a lot of that production came in the NLCS, which I mean is a good thing because that's obviously you're getting hot at the right time. He's had 14 hits, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs in the NLCS, but that means he just had 4 hits. Oh wait, I think I reversed it. 14 hits. I don't know why I have 9 home runs on here because that's not accurate. I wrote that down wrong. But he basically in the NLDS he was not as big of a factor in the NLCS. And the Braves while the Brewers have better overall pitching, while the Brewers have better overall pitching, which is part of the reason why Rosario struggled during that series. I mean, the Dodgers also have good pitching, and he lit them up. He's been the driving force as to why this team has gotten this far, and I think he will have a good series. It's just I think he needs to have another series like he did in the NLCS, and I just don't know if he can keep that kind of production up. And then if you have, and then you look at the rest of the team in the NLCS, the rest of the Braves, they had 37 hits, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs. And then, looking into that a little bit more, Freddie Freeman, 6 hits, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. So Rosario and Freeman have been the main contributors, but Freeman has struggled at times this postseason. And so I think that if Rosario's production takes a little bit of a step back, the Astros have more firepower to counterbalance that and have enough, in their arsenal with Correa and Bregman and Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez and all those guys. They have the bats to compensate. And that's not, obviously, Austin Riley's had a good playoffs. Jock Peterson's had a good playoffs. But, I don't know that the Braves are here without the production of Eddie Rosario. Throughout that NLCS, and I just don't know if he can keep up that production, and they'll need another production like that in order to overcome what the Astros have.
Yeah, I agree. This is a hot take, but for me, I'm kind of almost borderline with it because I have seen teams win without their hottest hitter performing well. Wasn't that long ago, the Red Sox. JD Martinez went in a major slump in the postseason, and it was guys like Rafael Devers, Jackie Bradley Jr., Andrew Benintendi that stepped up and became, Mitch Moreland. It always seems like there's some unsung hero for the winning team, and honestly, you need Rosario to be hot. Honestly, to keep up his hot hitting right now to overcome how good the Astros are on offense. But honestly, I think it really does more so come down to who is going to be that unsung hero that we haven't been talking about very much this postseason on this team. Who is going to be those players that step up and get those key hits and key situations? Like we've seen, it's not always all about the big bat. It's always can you get the runners in scoring position? Can you advance the runners once they are in scoring position? Those are the types of things that are going to win you a World Series. Yeah, obviously it's going to be better for you if you can hit the home runs while you got those runners in scoring position. But who's going to come up with that key triple? Or who's the guy at the back end of the batting order that's going to hit a big home run that's going to boost the offense to make a comeback? Those are the guys that I need to keep an eye. I want to keep an eye on. But if you can keep your hottest hitter hot, yeah, that is a very big key to defeating a team like the Astros. So I am saying hot take, but at the same time, it's kind of lukewarm for me because I feel like even if he were to cool down, if other unknown contributors or back of the lineup contributors can step up, I think they can still be okay.
Yeah, I think, okay, so I reread my notes that I put down, and now that I can actually read, now that I actually remembered how to be literate, I think what I was trying to say earlier about the Brewers series is that Rosario did not, wasn't really too much of a factor in the series against the Brewers, and yes, the Brewers have better overall pitching. He still struggled against, that team as opposed to the Dodgers, who also have good pitching. And then if it's a battle between the Braves bats without Rosario and the Astros are better. I think that's the point I was trying to get to. Because, and that's the thing. Rosario put on a Herculean effort in the NLCS, and I just think in order for that, he's going to have to keep up that pace. Not necessarily 474, that's ridiculous, but just in the terms of he's going to have he's going to have to keep that up. And if he has another series like he did against the Brewers, it's going to be very tough, I feel like, for the Braves to win.
Yeah, and I guess the players I was naming were decent hitters, so. Well, but Rosario, in the end, you just never know who's going to be that unsung hero. I mean, when I keep thinking about the Red Sox wins, Kevin Youkilis one year, Mike Lowell another year. I mean, Mitch Moreland. It wasn't the names you would think that were the bigger bats. It was other people that were stepping up and really becoming the main focal point.
yeah, I mean, the Cubs postseason is very different in 2016 without Miguel Montero. So, I mean,
Right.
you do have those, those performers as well, those players in there as well. So we'll see. It will be interesting to watch and see what Rosario does. I know also from, just keeping an eye on him from a fantasy perspective, I know he does have, he'll get hot for a while and then he'll slump really hard. So hopefully he can keep that bat hot. Moving over to the Astros here, the Astros can overcome their lack of starting pitching, hot or cold. For me, it is a cold take. Looking at the ALCS, Framber Valdez and Luis Garcia were 2-1 with 17 and a third innings pitched, a 4.15 ERA and 16 strikeouts. The rest of their starters went 0-1 with 3 innings pitched, a 21 ERA and a strikeout. Now, granted, it's they don't have Lance McCullers, and I think, and I don't even right now, I don't think McCullers' status has been determined. If Lance McCullers pitches, then I think it's a whole different ball game for the Houston Astros. It's just a matter of who is going to take the ball in those games where Valdez and Garcia doesn't start. We've seen Jose Urquidy. He struggled. We saw Zach Greinke. He's not even fully stretched out to be a starter. We know what he's done in the postseason before, but he is not necessarily ready. Christian Javier's come out of the bullpen and been their bolt guy at times. He's not, he's been okay, but he only pitched 5 innings in the ALCS. So, the Astros have a big bullpen, but the thing is, when you are leaning so hard on that bullpen, they're going to get tired. They're going to get fatigued. It's going to be the end of the season finally, and you just don't know, how much those guys can still hold up. Their bullpen has been incredible this postseason. Graveman's been good. Maton's been good, who they got at the deadline. They've had some guys step up, but just their starters, they need someone in games 3 and 4 when Valdez and Garcia aren't starting. And don't forget, the reason why the ERA for those two guys is 4.15 is because there was the game that Luis Garcia started, one of those games against the Red Sox. He allowed some of those base runners before being removed because of the leg injury. Jake Odorizzi came in and allowed a grand slam to, I think that was JD Martinez's grand slam. So they need someone to bridge that gap in between those starts. We'll see if it happens. They lucked out a little bit, they looked out a little bit, by being able to, have that big comeback in, I think it was Jose Urquidy's start, or Zach Greinke's start. So they were able to overcome that, and then it flipped it back over for Framber. He had a great game, and then Luis Garcia had a great game, and the series was over. Switching it over to the Braves, the bullpen, like I said, I gave the Astros bullpen some praise. Looking over the other side, the Braves starters in the NLCS, 25 and a third innings pitched, in total, a 4.26 ERA and 19 strikeouts. They've got Max Fried, they've got Charlie Morton, they've got Ian Anderson, they've got at least they've got more guys that you trust starting a game than the Astros do, and I think that's going to be a big determining factor in this World Series.
Yeah, this is going to come down to pitcher management, honestly. I do give the advantage to the Braves just because their starters can go deeper into the game. And I think with how some of these, especially the ALCS, how some of these earlier games or even later, they weren't completely wrapped up, and they had to work their pitchers a little bit differently. I think I have to give Atlanta the advantage there, just because their starters are better. Their starters can go deeper, and that's much more reliable. If you can get more reliable innings out of your starters and not have to dip into your bullpen quite as much, that means your pitching staff can be stretched further as the series goes on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the moment of truth is here. The Astros will win the 2021 World Series. It's time for our World Series prediction. And I think it is a hot take. I think the Astros are going to win the World Series. Like I said before, the Braves remind me a lot of the 2019 Nationals. I mean, there's a lot of what Howie Kendrick did in 2019 with what Eddie Rosario is doing. You've got your, you've got your batters like Freeman, and Adam Duvall, who have done this kind of thing before and who are really reliable. But I just don't see that kind of magic happening again here. I mean, that was a wild series where literally the road team won every single game. You had the craziness that was Game 7 in that series. I just don't see that happening again. Like I said, Braves need Rosario to channel what he had in the NLCS. They need him to be able to keep up with the Astros bats. The Astros can match the Braves bullpen-wise, and I just think, you talked about guys stepping up for the Braves that you may not expect. I mean, I do think that someone like Greinke, Urquidy, Christian Javier, Jake Odorizzi, someone will step up to give the Astros some length with their pitching staff, and I think that will ultimately be the difference. I'm picking this World Series like I pick the Super Bowls that the Patriots are in. I pick the team that I think will win, but I'm rooting for the other team. So I'm picking the Astros. I have the Astros in 6. But I am going to be pulling for the Braves. Chop on. I want to see them win the World Series just because I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't want to see the Astros win another World Series while they've got Altuve, Correa, Bregman, any of those guys on their roster. I don't want to see it happen, but I have a strong feeling that it will.
Yeah, I think it's a hot take as well. Houston is just really deep. I mean, no matter if your starting pitchers can go deep into a game, they're more apt to do it. I just feel like Houston's offense, there's not really much of a weak point in it, and that's going to get to Atlanta. I just don't think Atlanta has the capability to get into a shootout per se with the Astros, and I could see that turning to that point. Just because the Astros pitching is a little suspect. All the Astros, like you said, all they just need to do is get some decent performances out of some of their starters, and the series is in their hands. Because their offense is just clicking on all cylinders right now, and that's going to be the biggest thing for them. Like you, I'm picking them to win, but I am rooting for the Braves. I want to party like it's the 90s again.
Yeah, it takes us back to when we were young in the 90s. We want to be able to remember that Braves magic.
There we go.
Yeah, so there you have it. There's our World Series preview. We've both got the Astros winning it all.
Now, how many? Astros and how many?
I said 6. How many do you say?
I'm gonna say I like 6. Yeah. I don't think a full 7, but
it'll be a fun series to watch.
They make it. Yeah, it's going to be a very fun series just because I guess Houston's a usual suspect, but yeah. I don't know. Just because the Braves are going to be a fun team to watch.
I think what's going to happen is I think the Astros get up. They win the first 2 games in Houston. Then the Braves win Game 3 on some crazy walk-off. They lose Game 4. Then they win Game 5, so they're down 3-2, and then you're thinking, oh, can the Braves come back from down 3-1? What a narrative! They were down 3-1 in last year's playoffs, or they're up 3-1 in last year's playoffs and lost. Now they're down 3-1. Can they come back and win? And then Houston's like, nah, and they win in Game 6. I can see the series playing out exactly like that. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's gonna go a full 7. I think. I obviously we all root for it, but it's just not. It's something that just doesn't happen all the time, and so thinking it's going to happen twice in 2 years with this, one of those teams being the same is. Although I guess it did happen in 2014, 2016, 2017, and 2019. So I guess Game 7s have been more frequent than maybe we think, but
yeah. Well, no, what's going to happen now, since we talked about overtime, is that it's going to go 7 games and it's going to be an intense extra innings thriller in Game 7.
A 20-inning game in Game 7. We're going to be playing like when I'm getting ready for work at 6 in the morning. We'll still be playing.
Yep.
That reminds me, do you remember that Red Sox Dodgers game that went like 18 innings a couple years ago, right?
I fell asleep, woke back up, and they were still playing.
That's what happened with me too. I had to drive to Southern Indiana for a wedding. And I had the game on, and I fell asleep, woke up, and I saw the baseball field still, and I was like, oh, it must just be the highlights. Like, nope, they're still going. It's the top of the 15th inning. Like, geez. All right. Well, there you have it. B. Scott and I both picked the Astros in 6. We'll see if that plays out. Now, before we go, we want to switch gears over to college football. We've done this a couple of times this year. Haven't updated it in a while, so we wanted to get that going. It's our Indiana Ambassador rankings. So basically, if you are unfamiliar, what B. Scott and I did was we were like, we want to do some power rankings this year for college football, but we don't want to do rankings based on like actual like talent and skill, because then it'll just be Notre Dame in one tier and then everybody else kind of fluctuating, which is kind of actually how this year's playing out even in the other type of rankings. But we wanted to do a ranking system where we were like, hey, what are the exciting teams to watch? What can you get excited about if you're a football fan in the state of Indiana? So preseason Indiana Ambassador rankings were Ball State, coming off of that great season last year where that's what it kind of was inspired by, was the meme last year that Ball State was the best team in Indiana based on them being the only team that won a bowl game and the only team that like won their conference championship. We had IU at number 2. We had Notre Dame at 3, Marian from the NAIA at 4, Purdue at 5. We re-examined the rankings in week 3, Notre Dame being number 1, Purdue number 2. They had just played. Ball State at number 3 because they were kind of reeling in a 3-game losing streak at the time. We had Indiana Wesleyan, who was just kicking butt and taking names. They had that big win over Valpo for an NAIA school to knock off an FCS school. Was pretty crazy. And then we had IU, who was still kind of, on our radar, but, just kind of barely in there. And so now we turn our sights to this week. So looking at some of the games that occurred, we had USC at number 13, Notre Dame. The Irish jumped out to a 10-0 lead. A Kyron Williams touchdown run makes it 17-13 or 17-3 at the half. Another TD run by Williams makes it 24-13. But then comes the comeback by the Trojans. Keontae Ingram, Darwin Barlow, they both run for a touchdown to trim the lead to 24-16. A Tyler Buckner touchdown, though, a touchdown run on the ground for the Irish is the dagger there. The Irish win 31-16. Kyron Williams, 25 carries, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. B. Scott, I need you to put your earmuffs on again because we have.
I was there. You don't have to tell me to put my earmuffs.
That's true. Wisconsin at number 25, Purdue. Summary of that one. Braylon Allen has a 4-yard touchdown run to put the Badgers up 7-0. And then Ross 8 is rocking. Why? Because George Karlaftis returns a 56-yard scoop and score to put the Boilers up 13-10. It was tied at 13 at the half, but it was all Wisconsin in half number 2. Ches Malushi, he had a 20-yard touchdown run to make it 20-13. And then Allen's second touchdown of the game puts the final nail in the coffin. The Badgers win 30-13. Malusi and Allen combined for 289 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. B. Scott, give us your thoughts really quickly on that game.
Purdue has now lost 15 consecutive games to Wisconsin. A week after knocking off number 2 Iowa and holding their big rushing attack to 76 yards, Purdue allows Wisconsin's 2 backup running backs to look like Jonathan Taylor. And for some reason, Purdue has an affinity for scoring only 13 points. This was the fourth time in 5 weeks, I believe it is, that Purdue has only scored 13. Notre Dame, 13. Illinois, 13. Minnesota, 13.
I was going to say, it scored more against Iowa.
Yeah, that's what. And then Iowa was more than that. And then this week, 13. So, yeah, for some reason, 13 points is the magic number. We hit 13 and stop. But yeah, like if we did these rankings last week, I think we would have had Purdue probably number 1. But now it's like, where do you put them? Because they're exciting just because watching David Bell and George Karlaftis, but they're not that exciting to watch because they're like Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what team you're going to get.
Yeah. The Purdue Boilermakers are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Except
for 13 points.
Except a box of chocolates, you're always going to end up most likely being happy because it's still a box of chocolates. You come out a winner no matter what, unless you get that weird, like raspberry
toothpaste one.
Yeah, like who did this?
Some demented person is it's like, let's put toothpaste in here because I want to see the world burn. Speaking of seeing things burn, it's the dumpster fire that is Hoosier football at the moment. That's the last game to summarize today. Number 5, Ohio State at Indiana. The Buckeyes, not much to summarize here. The Buckeyes led 44-7 at halftime. They win 54-7. C.J. Stroud went 21 for 28 for 266 yards and 4 touchdowns. Trevion Henderson, 9 carries, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So now let's get in to the Indiana Ambassador rankings for.
And Ball State lost at home.
And Ball State, lost at homecoming, 16-10, wasn't it, to Miami?
Which is not a new phenomenon. Ball State does not know how to win at homecoming.
They don't. They really do struggle at homecoming. And that's been a thing. Like, I remember going to homecoming games like when I was still in high school, and they would get the year that Ben Roethlisberger was at Miami of Ohio. That was a homecoming game, and he played at Ball State, and it was like 49-3. Obviously, naturally, but I'm just saying that, like, it's funny that that's also a homecoming game. The homecoming, I think they lost most of the homecoming games that we were at, except for.
Well, they lost all of them except the year after I graduated. I came back to see you, or no, it was after you graduated too. Even we went to that game against Kent.
Just a couple of
alumni.
Like,
oh my God, Ball State went on homecoming.
Yeah, finally had to see it after we weren't there anymore. So, looking at the Indiana Ambassador rankings for now, we have Stump Papa in the chat. Dig in the background. I appreciate it. Honestly, it's a long time in the making. I don't know why this wasn't my background the whole time. But looking at the Indiana Ambassador rankings, starting out with number 1, we have Notre Dame at number 1. Their remaining schedule on the year is UNC, Navy, then they go to Virginia, Georgia Tech, at Stanford. They're number 11 in the AP poll. The reason why this is all prevalent is because they could still easily finish 11-1. They still have an outside shot at the college football playoff. They likely won't make it, but that's why they're number 1, because they could make the playoff. That's exciting. So, and
also look at the teams on the remaining schedule. UNC is going to be an exciting one. Virginia is going to be an exciting one. It's always exciting, Notre Dame and Stanford.
And Navy. Navy seems to always stick around.
So, the teams on the remaining schedule are exciting as well.
Yeah. So those will be a lot of fun to watch. And talking about the college football playoff, you've got Michigan and Michigan State. They play this week. All of those teams, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, all play each other down the stretch here. So those teams will only one team will emerge from that. Maybe not. We saw that we saw that back in 2008 with Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Texas, where they all beat each other and took themselves out. You have Alabama and Georgia. As long as that game is a close game, we'll probably see them both in the college football playoff. If it's not, then we'll only see one. And then you have if Oregon and or Oklahoma don't win their conferences, Notre Dame's still in the mix. So that sounds like a lot to ask for, but at the end of the day, it's really not, because you're gonna have you're gonna have those Big Ten teams knocking each other out. You're gonna have likely one of the SEC teams knock each other out, and you're going to have asking for Oregon to lose again isn't asking a lot.
Well, they still have to play Oregon State, and Oregon State's like the surprise darling of the Pac-12 right now.
Right,
sitting at 5-2 now, with one of their losses
being
to Purdue,
being the CraigCrash tailgate that you should go check out on our YouTube channel, 3C Media.
Shameless plug.
Exactly. So that's why Notre Dame's number 1. They're still in it. In the college football playoff hunt, their games are going to be exciting. Number 2. You know what? I just basically said the heck with it. we're gonna give the NAIA schools the love they deserve. We, not that we were gonna put them, in the rightful place, but just because, typically we want to have like one or two, of the teams that you normally are used to seeing, but those teams haven't been performing. Who has been performing is Indiana Wesleyan. They are 6-1, winners of their last 3. They're number 8 in the NAIA. They beat Marian 41-7 earlier this October. This is a program that is still in its infancy. They started in 2016 for football, and here they are, top 10 in the NAIA 5 years later. Their last game was a 35-0 win over Lawrence Tech this weekend. Devadney Alford has just been insane. 634 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. I mean, Indiana Wesleyan is just straight popping off this season.
Oh, yeah. It's been a fun ride. But if you honestly, I look back on, like, seeing, like, football commitment announcements and everything, there was a lot of guys from the state of Indiana that were choosing IWU, and you can see it now because you don't realize that the state of Indiana, people don't think Indiana as like a hotbed for high school football. You don't, but because of that, a lot of these guys have a chip on their shoulder. All these bigger programs overlooked us, so we're going to go out here and we're just going to play really good football and win. And they got that opportunity at Indiana Wesleyan, and you can see it paying off right now. That's awesome. I love seeing these smaller programs have that kind of success.
Yeah, and speaking of those smaller programs, number 3 on our list is number 11 in the NAIA, Marian. The Marian Knights, they're looking good. They're 6-2. They've won 2 straight following that loss to IWU. Their last game was a win, 25-7 over Concordia, which is crazy because that's the team that knocked off Indiana Wesleyan. I do want to point out that Indiana Wesleyan lost the week after we gave them the shout out on the last power rankings. That was their game against Concordia.
Great.
I know, right? So you've this season some of their standout performers: Zach Bundalo, 52% completion percentage. He's thrown for 1,818 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Dalen Taylor, 857 yards, 8 touchdowns. All I'm saying is that I don't know how the NAIA figures out their tournament bracket, but you're crazy if you're not going to put these two teams on opposite sides, because I want to see a Marian IWU NAIA national championship.
I will go to that game.
Well, it's in Florida.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It used to be a home. It used to be the better team hosted it.
Maybe it is. I thought it's in years past.
Like when Marian has won it, it was actually, I believe it was at Marian. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe just like we all thought there was a movie called Shazam with Sinbad, but we were all thinking of Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal. The Mandela.
That's true. Yeah, that was a different timeline. That was a different timeline than what we're talking about.
That was a different That was in the other multiverse.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I don't know how it works, but I just hope that's how it ends up, is a IWU Marian championship. And if it is
Florida.
Road trip.
3 media road trip.
Yes, I like that. Number 4 in our rankings is still Ball State. They do lose homecoming to Miami of Ohio. They're now 2-2 in MAC play. Northern Illinois right now is 4-0 in the MAC West. Everybody else is 2-2. So they're still very much in the hunt. Their remaining schedule is at Akron, at Northern Illinois. Then they play Central Michigan and Buffalo at home to finish out the season. Northern Illinois' remaining schedule is at Kent, who does lead the MAC East, Ball State, Buffalo, Western Michigan. So, they have a tough schedule ahead of them. Ball State also has, that's like most of those teams still on their schedule. But at the same time, Ball State, I feel like, is still very much in the MAC West conversation. And have wins over, Western, which is nice. If they can get that win over Northern, that's going to be a really good thing for them. So, they could still win the MAC West. They need to win 3 of 4 though to be bowl eligible, because they're 4-4 right now. And because isn't that still the rule? Don't you? If you play an FCS team, you have to win 7 games instead of 6.
No, you can still win 6, but if you play more than one FCS team,
well, then never mind. They can go 2-2 and be bowl eligible. That's a little bit better.
Yeah, but how many times did they go 6-6 in the past and be left out on the outside looking in?
Yeah, but also there's like 70,000 bowl games now, so like they.
That's true. And there's some years where they take a 5-7 team. So if a 5-7 team makes it over a 6-6 Ball State, we're going to be taking to the streets and burning the Cheez-It Bowl.
True. So yeah.
Well, no, let's not burn the Cheez-It Bowl. I like a bowl of Cheez-Its, just like the next.
Yeah, Cheez-Its are good.
It's the Pinstripe. We're gonna burn the Pinstripe Bowl because who needs Yankee Stadium?
Exactly. I think that's a good plan. And then we finish out our rankings with Purdue. They are 2-2 in the Big Ten. They have losses to Minnesota and Wisconsin. The bad thing about that is that Minnesota is ahead of them right now in the Big Ten standings on their side. Their remaining schedule is at Nebraska. That should be a win. Number 8, Michigan State. At number 5, Ohio State. Not great into the season to play those teams. And then Northwestern and IU. Any upset? Yeah. Any momentum after the Iowa upset is still kind of gone. They could still win 3 of their last 5 to finish 7-5, which was what we had before the season. As far as what their record projection was. And hey, what did I tell you? I said they were gonna have a good start to the season and then have a Purdue like second half where it doesn't go according to plan and it kind of falls apart.
Why are you doing the Joe Biden whisper?
I don't know, but I enjoy it. I'm enjoying it because I like to point out when I have accurate predictions. Just like I point out the fact that the CraigCrash Wheel of Misery is 7-1 against the spread this season. So, I mean, I tweeted it out. I'm surprised I didn't get any response from you that the Crash Kiss of Death might be dead. I don't know.
Well, there. Put that out in the universe.
Exactly. Now I'm just going to lose everything the rest of the way.
London Bridge and down.
It is.
But yeah, I like Purdue at 5 there. I may have put them at 4 because of the excitement factor of just watching David Bell and George Karlaftis play.
True.
I do believe that Purdue will regain their momentum. For some reason, Wisconsin is just their Achilles heel, just like Purdue is Iowa's Achilles heel. And I think Purdue will regain their momentum and get exciting again. It's, like you said, they're going into a Nebraska team that seems they can't get out of their own way. And then I honestly, okay, so I'm chalking up Ohio State as a loss. That Ohio State team
probably a good call.
They have something to prove right now after losing to Oregon, and they're doing that precisely. No, I could see George Karlaftis and David Bell having some good days and Purdue still getting blown out. But honestly, I could see Purdue pulling the upset still against Michigan State. Michigan State, we're still not 100% certain who they are. Very much like we weren't 100% certain who Iowa was sitting at number 2. And then Northwestern's a dumpster fire right now. And you finish off your season at Wrigley against Northwestern and then at home against Indiana, who is on their 3rd-string quarterback, true freshman quarterback, Donovan McCauley. So it is conceivable for this Purdue team. I'm going to say this Purdue team finishes out the season 3-2 to finish up, to have their final record be 7-5 and get themselves into a bowl game. And honestly, that's kind of what the goal was coming into this season. You wanted to see this team make that step forward. And when it looked like they could make that step and more, you got excited, but you got to realize, this team is coming off of 2 consecutive losing seasons and missing bowl games. So for them to get back to a bowl game is exactly what we all were wanting. And it's going to happen, most likely.
Yeah. So
I put it out there. It's not.
See, now you're jinxing everything. Well, that will do it. Our rankings at the end of the day are Notre Dame 1, Indiana Wesleyan 2, Marian 3, Ball State 4, Purdue 5, B Scott has those two flipped. We usually try to let's stay aligned, but I'll just flip those two just for you, B Scott. It's been a rough night with the Xfinity outage and everything, so I'll go ahead and flip those for you. But that's how our rankings are going to play out. It'll be interesting to see what happens the remainder of the season. But that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Remember, you can follow us at 3C Media on Facebook, at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. Go check out our YouTube channel, 3C Media. That's where you can not only find us every week, you can find the MCT podcast, which is our YouTube exclusive podcast. Those guys are doing amazing right now. You can also find some YouTube only content there as well. Speaking of content,
3C Media Tailgate Special.
Yeah, you can find the 3C Media Tailgate Special where B. Scott and I, went to Purdue and had a great time when their win over Oregon State. So
in the rain.
We did. For you guys. So feel bad for us and go watch our video. We sat in the rain for you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
I did it because I like Purdue football.
No, I know. Me too. But it was a bit. Go along with the bit. No. But yeah, go check that out on 3C Media on YouTube. Go check us out on TikTok as well, 3C Media, where there's a lot of YouTube, TikTok only content there. Remember, you can watch us every week, interact with us in the chat, twitch.tv/CraigCrash. We've had a lot of interaction in the chat tonight. Meg, Stunt Papa, all on the chat. We are going to end things on a dad joke. Meg types in, how do you get a farm girl? I know the answer to that, a tractor. So we're ending it on a dad joke there. But yeah, so thank you guys all for hanging out in there. And remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week is our college basketball preview, isn't it? Isn't it time for college hoops?
Is it?
I think so. Okay, so tentatively, it will be our college basketball preview. We're going to make sure that if it's not, I'm sure we'll be talking all things football, all things, all things college football, all things NFL. Maybe we'll finally talk about the Colts again. We'll see if that plays out.
Maybe we'll throw a little bit of Pacers in there as well.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, who knows? You'll have to find out next week.
It's going to be a mystery box of an episode.
Yes, it really is. Well, again, thank you guys all for watching. B. Scott, thank you for hanging with us through all the technical issues. But that will do it. We will see you guys all next week. And until then, have a good one, everybody.